Chosen one. Why their jealousy is fueling you. You walk into a room, and the air just drops. It gets heavy, cold. You haven't said a word, yet you can feel the silent judgment slicing through the space between you and people you thought were friends. It's a quiet, suffocating resentment. A heavy gaze that tracks your every move, waiting for you to stumble. Have you ever felt that invisible weight pulling you down? I want to hear your real story in the comments below, because this space is for honest conversations. It starts subtly, a sideways glance, a forced smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes, a backhanded compliment that stings long after the conversation ends. You try to brush it off. You tell yourself you're overthinking it. But you're not. You can feel it in your bones. A strange, isolating chill wraps around you when you share good news. When something finally goes right for you, the silence from certain people is deafening. They don't celebrate you. They study you. They look at your victories not as shared joy, but as a personal offense. It is a terribly lonely realization. You start to wonder what you did wrong. Did you speak too loudly? Did you take up too much space? Did you forget to be humble? So you shrink. You actively begin to dismantle your own light. You downplay your accomplishments. You swallow your excitement before it can ever reach your lips. When something beautiful happens in your life, you immediately follow it up with a self-deprecating joke. Just to soften the blow, just to make them feel safe around you. You break your own spirit into tiny, digestible pieces so they won't choke on your potential. But it doesn't work, does it? No matter how small you make yourself, no matter how much you try to blend into the gray background of their expectations, the resentment lingers. It's like a shadow that stretches longer as your inner sun tries to rise, because their jealousy was never really about what you did. It was always about who you are, and who you are is something they cannot replicate. There's a strange, heavy grief in this, a mourning for the relationships you thought were solid. You begin to see the cracks in the foundations of your oldest friendships, sometimes even within your own family. The people who were supposed to be your loudest cheerleaders are the ones quietly betting on your failure. They watch your struggles with a secret, hungry satisfaction. When you fall, they are suddenly there, comforting you, holding you, patting your back. They love you when you are broken. They are completely infatuated with your tragedy because your pain makes them feel superior. Your struggles validate their own stagnation. But the second you try to stand back up, the second you dust off your knees and look toward the horizon, the warmth vanishes, the coldness returns. It is a heartbreaking cycle. You spend countless nights staring at the ceiling, feeling a profound sense of alienation. You feel like an outsider in your own life, carrying a vision, a spark that no one else seems to understand or want to nurture. You feel like a stranger walking among people who know your name but refuse to know your heart. This is the burden of the path you are on, the deep, agonizing loneliness of carrying a destiny that makes other people uncomfortable. You try to explain it to them, but the words fall flat. How do you explain a fire in your soul to people who have spent their entire lives running from the heat? You can't, so you carry it in silence. You carry the weight of their unspoken anger. You carry the exhaustion of constantly reading the room, monitoring their moods, walking on eggshells so your very existence doesn't trigger their deepest insecurities. It drains you. It pulls the energy straight out of your chest. There are days when the sheer exhaustion of it all makes you want to surrender. You look at the people who just coast through life, the ones who fit perfectly into the mold society built for them. And a part of you aches for that simplicity. A part of you wishes you could just turn it all off. You wish you could just be ordinary, unseen, unbothered. You ask the universe, why me? Why this relentless resistance? Why does every step forward have to be met with this thick, muddy opposition from the very people who should be walking beside me? It feels like a curse, a punishment for daring to want more, for daring to step outside the lines they drew for you. The jealousy of others isn't just an annoyance. It is a physical weight. It is a dark, heavy blanket thrown over your ambitions, designed to suffocate your drive. It creeps into your mind, planting seeds of doubt. You start to internalize their whispers. You start to look in the mirror and wonder if maybe they are right. Maybe you are too much. Maybe you are dreaming too big. Maybe you are entirely delusional. They project their own fears onto you so fiercely that you start wearing them as your own. You sit in this darkness, feeling entirely disconnected from the world. The isolation wraps tightly around your throat. You are exhausted from apologizing for your existence. You are tired of being the villain in the story of people who simply refuse to write their own. You are deeply, profoundly tired. But then something shifts. You hit a breaking point. A quiet moment of clarity in the dead of night, where the tears stop falling and the exhaustion gives way to a cold, sobering truth. You realize something profound. Their jealousy has absolutely nothing to do with you. Think about a mirror, a perfectly clean, polished piece of glass. When someone stands in front of it and hates what they see, they don't blame themselves. They blame the mirror. They want to smash the glass. They want to cover up, throw a sheet over it, or shatter it into 1,000 pieces. So they don't have to look at the reflection anymore. You are the mirror, your drive, your ambition, your refusal to settle for a mediocre existence. It reflects back to them everything they've abandoned within themselves. When you take a step forward, it reminds them that they have been standing still for years. When you speak passionately about your dreams, it echoes loudly in the empty halls of their own given-up hopes. You are a walking, breathing reminder of their unfulfilled potential, and that terrifies them. It is so much easier for them to try and extinguish your fire than it is for them to gather the wood, strike the match, and build their own. It takes no effort to tear someone down. It takes no courage to sit in the stands and throw stones at the person bleeding in the arena. This realization changes everything. The heavy, suffocating blanket of their judgment suddenly feels different. It no longer feels like a punishment. It begins to feel like a strange, twisted form of confirmation. Let that sink in. Their resistance is the universe's way of confirming that you are actually moving. Think about the physics of flight. An airplane cannot lift off the ground by coasting with the wind. It has to drive directly into it. The resistance of the air pushing against the wings is exactly what creates the lift. Without that massive, invisible force pushing back, the plane stays grounded. It just rolls along the tarmac, safe, heavy, and completely useless. You are facing resistance because you are achieving lift. You are no longer moving horizontally. You are moving vertically. You are ascending, and the higher you go, the thinner the air gets. The fewer people can breathe at that altitude. Their jealousy is the wind hitting your wings. Every sideways glance, every unsaid congratulations, every subtle attempt to undermine your confidence, it is all just friction. And friction only happens when there is movement. If you were still, If you were stagnant, if you were sitting right there next to them in the mud of complacency, they wouldn't be threatened by you. They would embrace you. They would love you because you would be just as stuck as they are. But you chose to climb. You chose to endure the grueling, lonely hike up the mountain while they decided to set up camp at the bottom and convince themselves that the peak wasn't worth it anyway. And as you climb, something remarkable happens. You stop needing them to understand. You stop craving the validation of people who are committed to misunderstanding you. The desperate urge to shrink yourself, to apologize for your brilliance, just evaporates. It is replaced by a quiet, fierce resolve. You start to see their jealousy not as a poison, but as fuel. It is the universe clearing the path for you. It is a harsh but necessary filtration system, removing the people who are not equipped to walk with you into your next chapter. The people who cannot handle your growth now would absolutely betray you when you finally reach your destination. So, their resentment is actually a gift. It is the early warning system. It shows you exactly who is carrying a knife behind their back before you ever let them into your inner circle. It hurts, yes. It is deeply disappointing to watch people you care about fail the test of true loyalty, but it is necessary. You are being forced to travel light. Destiny does not allow you to carry extra baggage, especially when that baggage is filled with other people's insecurities. You must drop the dead weight. And as you let them go, as you stop trying to convince them of your worth, you feel a profound shift in your own energy. The power you were leaking into their bottomless cups is suddenly yours again. You breathe deeper. You stand taller. You look back at the resistance, the anger, the coldness, and you don't feel sorrow anymore. You feel a strange, calm sense of power, because you finally understand that their inability to stop your momentum is exactly what is making them so angry. They cannot stop your destiny. They can only watch it happen. So, you let them watch. You stop fighting the ghost in the room. You stop trying to prove your innocence to a jury that decided your guilt the moment you dare to dream. There's a profound, unshakable peace that settles into your chest when you finally stop resisting the reality of who you are. You are different. You were always going to be different. And for a long time, that felt like a curse. But standing here in the quiet aftermath of all that shedding, it feels like a revelation. The noise fades. The frantic need to be liked, to be included, to be understood by everyone, all just washes away. Like heavy rain clearing the thick, suffocating dust from a long, winding dirt road. What remains is a quiet, solitary strength. It is the quiet strength of the chosen. And being chosen doesn't mean you are better than anyone else. It simply means you were built for a specific, solitary journey. A journey that requires you to walk through the wilderness alone for a while. You find a strange, comforting warmth in the solitude now. You no longer look at an empty room and feel lonely. You look at it and feel safe. You feel the expansive, breathable space where your dreams can finally stretch their legs without knocking into someone else's fragile insecurities. You start to build in silence. You don't need to announce your victories anymore. You don't need to post your milestones just to prove to the doubters that you are still moving. Their gaze, which used to feel so heavy, now feels entirely irrelevant. They are watching a movie you have already finished directing. You are living in the future, and they are still endlessly criticizing your past. Let them. You harbor no hatred for them anymore. The burning anger that once fueled your late nights has settled down into a steady, warm ember of understanding. You realize they are fighting battles they cannot articulate. You realize their bitterness is just a heavy, unexpressed grief for the lives they never had the courage to live. You forgive them, not because they asked for it, and certainly not because they deserve it. You forgive them because you refuse to carry the heavy stones of their resentment in your pockets while you are trying to climb a mountain. You simply release them. You send them silent, distant wishes for peace, and then you turn your face back to sun. The path ahead is clear. It is uncrowded. The air is crisp and the silence is beautiful. You take a step and then another, feeling the solid ground beneath your feet. When the dark days come, because they always do, you don't panic. When the cold wind of rejection hits your face, you don't shrink back. You close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let the wind pass through you. You're like an ancient tree deeply rooted in the earth. The branches may sway, the leaves may fall, but the trunk does not snap. The core remains untouched. Every tear you cried in frustration, every night you spent agonizing over why you didn't fit in, it was all just the soil being turned. It was the universe preparing the ground for the massive roots required to hold your destiny. You are anchored in your truth. The only person who could ever hit the brakes on your life was you, and you have taken your foot off the pedal. You have handed the keys over to your purpose. You are finally blooming, quietly, resolutely, without permission. You are entirely, beautifully unstoppable. We navigate this strange, beautiful, and often lonely journey together. You are not alone in this feeling. Even when the world tries to make you believe you are the only one walking this path, there's a whole community of quiet warriors right here, holding space for you, understanding the unseen battles you fight every single day. I see you. I recognize the weight you carry. And I honor the quiet strength it takes for you to keep moving forward despite the resistance. You are doing beautiful work just by existing in your truth. Putting together these stories takes hours of dedication. If this video brought you peace today, you can buy me a coffee using the Ko-Fi link in the description. Your volunteer support keeps this channel alive. Thank you for listening.